Welcome to Safe, Simple, Sound Tax Edition. I'm Alex, your host, and I'm joined by Sam, our tax expert, and Taylor, who asks the questions you might have on your mind. Together, we break down complex tax topics into clear, actionable insights. We use AI-enhanced voices to deliver consistent, high-quality content while keeping our focus on what matters most, helping you understand your taxes. In each episode, I'll guide our discussion, Sam will provide expert analysis, and Taylor will make sure we explain everything in plain English. We're here to make taxes approachable, whether you're filing a basic return or dealing with more complex situations. But before we dive in, a quick note. This podcast is for entertainment only and does not constitute tax, financial, legal, or professional advice. Tax decisions should always consider your personal circumstances, filing status, and specific situation. All tax amounts, thresholds, and deduction values mentioned are examples only. Tax numbers change annually, and you must use the current official values from irs.gov when preparing your returns. Be sure to consult a qualified tax professional before making any tax-related decisions. If you would like personalized guidance, you can reach out to us at safesimplesound.com/contact. Let's get started. Today, we're diving deep into the critical topic of identity theft, specifically focusing on how it impacts your financial well-being. This episode is based on a helpful step-by-step guide from IRS Document Publication 17, a resource we all should be familiar with when it comes to protecting our finances. This publication really emphasizes the importance of proactive protection, highlighting vital steps like safeguarding your Social Security number and being vigilant against phishing scams. One particularly interesting point is the availability of an identity protection PIN, a powerful tool many people aren't even aware of. Here at Safe Simple Sound, we strongly believe in seizing financial control, and understanding identity theft is a crucial part of that. Today, we'll equip you with the knowledge and resources to navigate this complex landscape and, importantly, help you create a financial safety net to protect yourselves. To do this, we'll be exploring three key topics. First, we'll tackle SSN protection and tax-related identity theft. We'll examine real-life scenarios like the stolen SSN, where we'll discuss what to do if you discover your SSN has been compromised, and the tax preparer scam, exploring how to choose a trustworthy tax professional. Next, we'll move on to phishing and email scams. We'll unpack situations like the fake IRS email and the compromised account, providing practical tips on identifying and avoiding these traps. This ties directly into our core belief of understanding financial choices, because recognizing these scams is the first step in avoiding them. Finally, we'll wrap up with Identity Protection PIN and Taxpayer Advocate Service. We'll discuss proactive protection with IP PIN, looking at how this valuable tool works, and explore how the Taxpayer Advocate Service can help in scenarios like seeking help from TAS when you're facing particularly challenging tax issues related to identity theft. So get ready to learn, be informed, and empower yourself to protect your financial future. Let's dive in. Our first scenario today is stolen SSN. Imagine a young adult just starting their career receives a tax bill for a significant amount of income they never earned. They quickly realize their SSN has been stolen and used to file a fraudulent tax return. This is our stolen SSN scenario. Taylor, put yourself in their shoes. What would be your first reaction and what steps would you take?
Wow, that's scary. I think my initial reaction would be panic. I'd probably feel lost and unsure of what to do. I guess the first thing I'd do is contact the IRS, right?
Absolutely, Taylor. Contacting the IRS is crucial. But before we delve into the specifics of that, Sam, could you weigh in on the immediate steps someone should take if they suspect their SSN has been stolen, even before contacting the IRS?
Yes, Alex. First, file a police report. This creates a documented record of the theft. Second, place a fraud alert on your credit reports with one of the three major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion. This notifies creditors to take extra precautions before opening new accounts in your name. Third, consider a credit freeze. This restricts access to your credit reports, making it harder for thieves to open fraudulent accounts.
Those are excellent points, Sam. Think of it like locking down your house after a break-in. You want to prevent further damage. The police report is like documenting the scene, The fraud alert is like notifying the neighborhood watch, and the credit freeze is like changing all the locks.
So if I understand correctly, contacting the IRS is important, but taking these steps first can help minimize the damage while the IRS investigates. What about proving your innocence to the IRS? How does someone do that? It sounds like a nightmare trying to prove you didn't do something.
That's where the documentation comes in handy, Taylor. The police report, for instance, supports your claim. The IRS also has specific procedures for identity theft cases. You'll likely need to fill out Form 410039, the identity theft affidavit, providing details of the fraudulent activity. Keep records of all communication with the IRS and be prepared to provide supporting documents like your tax returns from previous years.
To expand on Sam's point, think of it like building a case. Each piece of evidence, whether it's the police report, the affidavit, or your communication records, adds another brick to the wall of your defense. The more solid your case, the quicker the IRS can resolve the issue.
That makes sense. So it's not just about telling the IRS what happened, it's about showing them with concrete evidence.
Exactly, Taylor. To recap, if you suspect your SSN has been stolen, file a police report, place a fraud alert, and consider a credit freeze on your credit reports. Contact the IRS immediately and complete Form 4039. Keep detailed records of all communication and supporting documentation. This situation can be incredibly stressful, but taking swift and decisive action can significantly limit the damage. Remember, you're not alone in this.
And to add to that, the IRS website, specifically irs.gov/identity theft, is an invaluable resource. It provides comprehensive information on the steps to take and the assistance available.
That's a great point, Sam. Listeners, if you suspect your SSN has been compromised, don't hesitate. Visit irs.gov/identity theft and contact the IRS immediately. Now, while directly having your SSN stolen is one way identity theft can occur, another common avenue is a fraudulent tax preparer. We'll discuss that in our next segment. Our next scenario is the tax preparer scam. Imagine this: a family, the Smiths, decide to use a new tax preparer to simplify their filing process. Unfortunately, this preparer turns out to be fraudulent, using their personal information for their own gain. The Smiths only discover the issue months later when they're contacted by the IRS. This is a nightmare scenario, but sadly, it's more common than you might think. Sam and Taylor, let's unpack this. Sam, how can individuals choose a trustworthy tax preparer and avoid scams like this?
Alex, that's a crucial question. First, always verify credentials. Ensure the preparer has a Preparer Tax Identification Number, PTIN. This is essential. Check their standing with professional organizations like the National Association of Tax Professionals or the American Institute of CPAs. Look for reviews and testimonials. A simple online search can reveal a lot. Don't be swayed by unusually low fees or promises of excessively large refunds. These can be red flags.
So if I understand correctly, it's not enough just to find someone who advertises tax preparation services. I need to actively check their background.
Exactly, Taylor. Being proactive is paramount in protecting your financial well-being. Sam, what about recourse? What can someone do if a tax preparer has already misused their information?
That's where things get more complicated, unfortunately. First, contact the IRS immediately. They have procedures for handling identity theft cases. File a police report and consider contacting the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, as well. You can also report the preparer to the IRS Office of Professional Responsibility. Keep meticulous records of all communications and transactions.
So, let's say I've been victimized. The IRS has been notified. The police report is filed. What then? Is there any way to mitigate the damage to my credit or finances? This feels overwhelming just thinking about it.
It can be, Taylor. That's why prevention is so crucial. But if you find yourself in this situation, consider a credit freeze or fraud alert. These can help limit the damage. Also, the IRS has a Taxpayer Advocate Service TAS, which we'll be discussing in a later segment. They can provide assistance in navigating these complex issues.
That's an important point, Sam. Remember, everyone, TAS can be a vital resource if you find yourself in this situation. Taylor, does that make the steps a bit clearer?
Yes, it does. It's still a lot to process, but knowing there are resources available like TAS and concrete steps to take makes me feel less helpless. So to recap, verify credentials, Check for red flags like unusually low fees or promises of huge refunds. Contact the IRS immediately if you suspect something's wrong, and file a police report. Did I miss anything?
You've got it, Taylor. That's a perfect summary. The key takeaway here is due diligence. Don't rush into choosing a tax preparer. A little research up front can save you a lot of headaches down the line. Before we move on, here's our call to action. Research and vet tax preparers thoroughly before sharing sensitive information. Report suspicious activity to the appropriate authorities. So we just discussed how important it is to vet tax preparers thoroughly. But unfortunately, scams can come in many forms, not just through shady tax professionals. Another common way criminals try to steal your information is through phishing emails, and that's what we'll be discussing next. Our next scenario is the fake IRS email. Imagine this. You're a senior citizen. You open your email and you see a message that appears to be from the IRS. It demands personal information and threatens legal action if you don't comply immediately. This is a classic phishing scam scenario, and today we'll explore how to spot these fraudulent emails and protect yourself. Sam, can you tell us what are some common red flags of phishing emails claiming to be from the IRS?
Absolutely, Alex. One major red flag is the IRS never initiates contact with taxpayers via email. They communicate primarily through regular mail. So any email claiming to be from the IRS demanding immediate action should raise a red flag immediately. Another common tactic is creating a sense of urgency. Phishers often use threatening language and tight deadlines to pressure you into acting without thinking. Look out for phrases like immediate action required or your account will be suspended. These are designed to scare you into making mistakes. Finally, poor grammar and spelling errors are often a giveaway. The real IRS has professional editors. Phishing emails often don't.
So, if I understand correctly, receiving any email claiming to be from the IRS is suspicious in itself.
Exactly, Taylor. That's the key takeaway. Don't assume it's legitimate just because it looks official.
That's a really important point, Sam. It's like getting a phone call from your bank asking for your account number. They already have that information. Taylor, let's say you receive an email that looks suspiciously like it's from the IRS. How would you go about verifying its legitimacy, besides the fact it's an email?
Well, based on what Sam said about urgency, I would look for those pressure tactics. Also, I'd be wary of any requests for personal information like my social security number or bank details. The IRS won't ask for that over email.
You're absolutely right, Taylor. The IRS will never request sensitive information through email. They also won't ask for PINs, passwords, or similar access information for your financial accounts. Another thing to check is the sender's email address. It likely won't end in .gov, which is the standard for official government websites.
So we've established that unsolicited emails from the IRS are a red flag. Demanding language is suspicious, and requests for personal information are a no-go. Let's recap those crucial points. Any email claiming to be from the IRS initiating contact is suspicious. Look for high-pressure tactics and poor grammar, and never provide sensitive information via email. Sam, what should someone do if they receive one of these phishing emails?
Forward the message to phishing@irs.gov. This helps the IRS track these scams and take action against the perpetrators.
This is so helpful. I'm thinking about my grandparents. They might fall for this kind of scam. I'll share these tips with them.
That's a great idea, Taylor. Education is key to preventing these scams. And that brings us to our call to action for our listeners. Never click links or provide personal information in response to unsolicited emails claiming to be from the IRS. Forward suspicious emails to phishing@irs.gov. Now, while simply receiving a phishing email isn't necessarily disastrous, clicking a link in one can be. In our next scenario, we'll explore what can happen when someone falls victim to a more sophisticated phishing attack and what you can do to protect yourself. Next up is the compromised account scenario. Imagine this. You're a small business owner. You're busy, juggling multiple tasks. An email pops up, seemingly from a trusted vendor. It mentions an overdue invoice and urges you to click a link to view it. You click, thinking it's legitimate, and boom, malware is installed, giving hackers access to your financial accounts. Sam, this sounds like a nightmare scenario. What steps can businesses take to protect themselves from these kinds of sophisticated phishing attacks and malware?
It's a very real threat, Alex. Protection starts with a multi-layered approach. First, strong antivirus and anti-malware software are essential. These programs can detect and quarantine malicious files before they can do any damage. Think of it as a security guard for your computer.
So even if I accidentally click a bad link, the antivirus can stop it from infecting my computer?
Exactly. It acts as a safety net. Beyond that, educating employees about phishing tactics is crucial. Regular training sessions can help them identify suspicious emails, like those with strange sender addresses, generic greetings, or urgent requests for personal information. This reminds me of what we discussed earlier about recognizing red flags in IRS impersonation emails. Similar principles apply here.
Right, that's a great connection, Taylor. The education piece is so vital. Sam, what about recovery? Let's say the worst happens, and despite precautions, a business's financial accounts are compromised. What can they do to mitigate the damage?
Speed is key. The moment you suspect a breach, contact your bank and credit card companies to freeze your accounts. This limits the potential financial losses. Then, change all your passwords, prioritizing your financial accounts and email. Finally, report the incident to the authorities, including the FTC, as mentioned in the IRS guide we referenced earlier. They have resources to help victims of identity theft.
So if I understand correctly, it's kind of like damage control, limiting the fallout, and then reporting the incident to the proper authorities. This whole situation reminds me of that article we discussed about identity theft and how quickly things can escalate.
Precisely. Early action can significantly reduce the impact. Think of a small leak versus a burst pipe. Addressing the problem quickly prevents further damage.
A perfect analogy, Sam, and it reinforces the importance of regular account monitoring. Just like checking your physical mailbox for unexpected mail, regularly reviewing your bank and credit card statements can help you catch unauthorized transactions early on. So to recap our discussion on compromised accounts, prevention is the best medicine. Invest in good antivirus software, educate your employees about phishing tactics, and monitor your accounts diligently. But if a breach does occur, act quickly. Freeze your accounts, change passwords, and report the incident. Taylor, any final thoughts?
This really underscores the importance of being vigilant online. It's easy to get complacent, but these scenarios remind us that real risks exist.
Exactly. And for our listeners, remember to install antivirus software. Be cautious about clicking links in emails, and regularly monitor your financial accounts. Those simple actions can make a huge difference. So, Taylor, we just discussed a really frustrating scenario involving a fraudulent tax preparer. It highlights how important it is to be vigilant about who has access to your sensitive information. But what if you want to take a more proactive approach to protecting your identity, even before something goes wrong? Now we need to discuss proactive protection with IP PIN scenario. Imagine a super secret code that adds an extra layer of security to your tax return, making it much harder for someone to file fraudulently using your social security number. That's essentially what an IP PIN is. So Sam, what are the benefits of having one, and who can actually get one?
The primary benefit is preventing someone else from filing a tax return using your SSN. It's a 6-digit number assigned by the IRS, and it's like a second password for your taxes. Anyone can apply for an IP PIN now, which is a recent change. Previously, it was mainly available to confirmed identity theft victims.
That's interesting. So if I understand correctly, even if I haven't been a victim of identity theft, I can still get an IP PIN as a preventative measure?
Exactly. It's a proactive step you can take to protect yourself. Think of it like locking your car doors, even if you haven't been robbed before. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Great analogy, Sam. Now, Taylor, let's say you decide you want this extra layer of security. How does the IP PIN process work? What steps are involved in actually getting one and then using it?
You can apply for an IP PIN online through the IRS website using the Get an IP PIN tool. You'll need to verify your identity through a rigorous process. Once you have your IP PIN, you'll need to enter it when you file your taxes each year. It's important to keep it secure and not share it with anyone.
So, it's a bit like online banking where you need a two-factor authentication. That's a good comparison. This reminds me of securing your SSN. You wouldn't just give that out to anyone.
Precisely. Treat your IP PIN like you treat your social security number. Guard it carefully.
So to recap, the IP PIN adds an extra layer of security to your tax filings by requiring a unique 6-digit code. Anyone can apply, which is a fantastic option for those wanting to be proactive about identity protection. You obtain it online through a secure process, and you must keep it safe and enter it every year when filing.
This makes a lot of sense. I'm actually thinking about applying for one myself. With all the data breaches you hear about these days, it feels like a smart move.
Absolutely, Taylor. And that brings us to our call to action for our listeners. Visit irs.gov/IPPIN to learn more and apply for an IP PIN. It's a free and powerful tool to protect yourself against tax-related identity theft. Now, while the IP PIN is a fantastic preventative measure, what happens if you're already dealing with tax issues related to identity theft? That's where the Taxpayer Advocate Service comes in, and that's what we'll be discussing next. Our final scenario for today is seeking help from TAS. Imagine this. You've been battling with the IRS for months over a tax issue stemming from identity theft. You've provided documentation, made countless calls, and you're feeling utterly overwhelmed. What do? Today, we're going to explore how TAS can provide support in these challenging situations. Sam and Taylor, let's dive in. Sam, could you tell us what kind of assistance does the Taxpayer Advocate Service provide, and who is eligible for their services?
TAS is an independent organization within the IRS dedicated to helping taxpayers resolve tax problems they haven't been able to fix on their own. They assist taxpayers facing significant hardship, including those who are victims of identity theft. For example, imagine someone whose tax refund is stolen due to identity theft, and they're struggling to get the IRS to correct the issue. TAS can advocate for them and work with the IRS to get their rightful refund. Eligibility depends on several factors, like the financial hardship caused by the tax problem and the taxpayer's unsuccessful attempts to resolve the issue through normal IRS channels.
So if I understand correctly, TAS is kind of like a last resort when you've hit a wall with the IRS.
That's a great analogy, Taylor. Think of TAS as your internal advocate within the system, helping you navigate the complexities and get a fair resolution. Sam, how can individuals contact TAS, and what information should they have prepared when seeking assistance?
The easiest way to contact TAS is by calling their national helpline at 877-777-4778. They also have local offices across the country. When contacting TAS, it's crucial to have all relevant documentation readily available. This includes any IRS notices you've received, copies of tax returns, and any records related to the identity theft like police reports or affidavits. Having a clear timeline of events and attempts to contact the IRS will also be helpful.
So, if someone suspects they're a victim of identity theft, they should gather all the evidence, contact the IRS initially, document those interactions, and then reach out to TAS if the issue persists.
Exactly. The key is to be organized and persistent. TAS can be incredibly helpful, but they need you to provide them with the necessary information to advocate effectively on your behalf. Let me add that they can also assist with issues beyond identity theft, like problems with IRS notices, tax liens, or appeals. They're really a valuable resource for any taxpayer facing a complex and unresolved tax problem.
That's a valuable point, Sam. It's not just about identity theft, it's about navigating the system effectively. Let's recap. TAS helps taxpayers with unresolved tax issues, particularly those facing significant hardship, including victims of identity theft. You can contact them via their national helpline or local offices. Be prepared with all relevant documentation, including IRS notices, tax returns, and any records related to the identity theft. If you're struggling with a tax issue related to identity theft and feel like you've exhausted all other options, don't give up. Reach out to the Taxpayer Advocate Service at 877-777-4778. They can be a crucial ally in your fight to resolve your tax problems. And that concludes our deep dive into the world of identity theft here on Safe Simple Sound, Tax Edition. We covered a lot of ground today, drawing from that helpful IRS article to understand how to safeguard our social security numbers, recognize and avoid phishing scams, and utilize resources like the IP PIN and the Taxpayer Advocate Service. We really hit home the importance of proactive protection, Remembering those tips from the IRS article about protecting your SSN and being wary of unsolicited emails claiming to be from them can make all the difference. I think the scenarios about the fake IRS email and the stolen SSN were especially impactful, reminding us how easily these things can happen and how crucial it is to be prepared. Thank you for joining me today on Safe, Simple, Sound Tax Edition. Check out the show notes for all mentioned resources, including IRS sources and helpful tools. If you found value in this episode, please leave a review and share it with someone looking to better understand their financial choices. This is Alex, wishing you safe, simple, and sound financial journeys.